This week at the Net Cafe, online literature. Are you a fan of mystery novels from Agatha Christie to Nancy Drew? It's all on MysteryNet.com. This is Joe Lambert. He runs the Center for Digital Storytelling, a unique form of cyber literature. Octavo.com is a site that takes advantage of digital publishing by making available unbuyable rare books. Meet Annalee Newitz. She's into contemporary American lit, and she's created a fantastic online literature database. Fray is a zine that gives new writers a chance to get published on the internet, and the writing at Fray is good. Literature online this week at the Net Cafe.
The Net Cafe is made possible in part by Cybersmith, wired for fun and learning, with locations in Cambridge, Massachusetts, Palo Alto, California, and White Plains, New York. By TechWeb, for up-to-the-minute technology news. And by TVA, Television Associates, bridging the worlds of computers and video with DVD authoring and MPEG encoding services.
Hi, and welcome to the Net Cafe. Is the internet good for literature, reading? Is it bad for it? Does the internet compete with people's reading, or does it actually encourage reading? There's certainly a lot of writing, a lot of literature on the web, and there are new forms of writing on the web, one of them called digital storytelling. Andrew is with the co-director of the Center for Digital Storytelling.
Joe Lambert, you're from the Center for Digital Storytelling, and when I think of digital storytelling, well, I figure if you type a story into a computer, that's digital storytelling, but I know it's
digital storytelling. But a group of artists have been working together for maybe 6 or 7 years, very much interested in the way that narrative and storytelling can ground the new technologies.
Okay.
And very much interested in human-centered stories.
So not letting the technology lead the story, letting the story lead and the technology follow. Give me some examples of what digital storytelling, the forms it's taking today.
I came into it through directing a piece of theater by a man named Dana Ashley. He does a piece of theater called Next Exit, in which he takes his entire life's archive, every image he ever took, and performs a series of episodes about each of the decades of his life. And through that story, you learn a great deal about Dana, but you also get the kind of payoff that a really good dramatic story has. Right. And he has it completely controlled as a background interface run off a micromedia director.
Wow.
And he does an amazing job of acting just as a kind of plain-speaking storyteller in which the technology is completely transparent.
Right.
That's a really effective example of where we imagine the technology going in a live performance environment.
Okay, so that's in a live performance. He was on a stage or somewhere with this running in the background. Now the web has entered into it. How do you combine digital storytelling in the web?
Well, I mean, if you come to our site at storycenter.org, you can see a lot of different resources and artists that we link to who have done very interesting work. A couple of my favorites are abidonsbubby.com, which is a storytelling site based on the Yiddish tradition of grandma stories.
I have an 86-year-old bubby of my own in New York.
And another great site, I think, is the guy Scott McCloud, who wrote a book called Understanding Comics. And he's a fabulous writer, and he's also a good web designer. And at scottmcleod.com, you can go see his work as well.
Okay, and they're using all the latest audio, video, things like that, or just a little bit?
They're mixing, I think, intelligent design with some of the newer features, for sure.
Right, so really keeping sort of the human heart at the core
center
of it.
Absolutely.
Okay, now you've got a festival, I think, actually, for a few years, a digital storytelling festival.
Yeah, we'll be going into our 5th year of a festival up in Crested Butte, Colorado, which is a beautiful Rocky Mountain resort. And we gather a couple of hundred leading artists, people from the corporate world, educational world, to talk about these issues, about how do we make meaningful new media. And if you visit that site all year long, you can see stories that have been created during each of the festivals.
So you don't have to go to Crested Butte.
No, but you can also tune in during the festival and get a full roundup of what we're doing there.
Right. Okay, now you mentioned corporate folks go to this as well as artists, and that sounds like an interesting sort of mix. Where's the future of digital storytelling going? Is it going into the corporation?
We just did a job for the Institute for the Future writing about this issue, and put simply, the future of media is conversational media. It's people using media to extend conversations just like this, so that I could point to a little website or a piece of video that I created to make my point, to finish my point. and that I would have an entire memory box
Right.
filled with these artifacts
Right.
that I could use as part of both my professional and personal.
So you're saying that this will extend into, you're right, the professional life as well as,
Absolutely. I think
as well
we'll
as your
live
personal
with
life.
these entire portfolios
Wow.
that we carry around in our back pocket.
Well, I'll be interested to see what we're all going to be carrying around at that point. So.
Well, we'll see.
For URLs of today's featured websites, just go to the Net Cafe site at cmptv.com. The mystery novel is one of the great and enduring forms of literature, forms of fiction. No surprise then, there are tons of websites dealing with mysteries, and one of the best ones we found is called MysteryNet.com. Andrew is with the site's producer.
Steve Cheifet, you're from MysteryNet, and I have to admit that I am a complete mystery fan. I love to go on an airplane and just engross myself in a novel. You guys got a really comprehensive site, and I'm assuming that's because there's a pretty big audience out there for mysteries. How big would you estimate the mystery-loving audience is?
You know, we get that question a lot. I'd say anywhere from 10 to 20% of the population likes mysteries.
Wow.
It's the #1 type of genre fiction. It's in the top 3 for games or puzzles. It's in the top 3 for TV shows and movies.
Always in the bestseller list. As soon as the big ones come out, they seem to go right to the
absolutely
to the top of the chart.
And a lot of that is being driven by the mainstream audience. It's not necessarily the people who read a mystery every day or 2 mysteries a day. It's the people who read them when they go on a trip or read them when they go on an airplane.
Right. Something strange about how people love to read about someone else's demise in a mysterious fashion when on vacation, for instance.
Well, a big part of it is at the end, you know, everything's going to be settled and solved, and that's almost the opposite of life.
Right.
And there's a lot of sociologists and psychologists that will write about that.
Right.
We try to avoid those serious topics on the website, though.
Right, but we all like a tidy ending if we can find it.
Right.
Okay, so you've got this big audience, and now you've got the site. With all these books in print, what do you guys offer that add to or are different than the novels that are coming out?
We call ourselves the place for everything mystery. So what we have is we have online mysteries, and these are anywhere from 1 minute to 4 or 5 minute mysteries.
Do you have original authors that are writing these?
Original authors, absolutely.
Okay.
And we have our main site of the network is called thecase.com, and we feature a new mystery every day.
Wow.
On Monday, we have thecase.com Solve It. And what we do is we email that to the subscribers, and we have 500,000 subscribers.
Who get this daily or weekly email?
Weekly email, and they read the mystery offline, and then they come to the website to see the solution, or as we say, to see who done it.
Right.
And
Any kind of prize if you get it right? Or?
Well, we give away a couple of T-shirts every week, the Case.com T-shirts, and occasionally a sponsor will provide a different prize.
Okay, so these are mystery lovers. Anything for mystery writers?
We actually do have a discussion for mystery writers. In fact,
I think I have a mystery novel in me, so that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, everybody does. Well, you might want to check out the economics of it before you start writing it.
Okay.
But there's a discussion area for mystery writers. We actually host the site for the Mystery Writers of America, which is the premier or professional organization for mystery writers.
They give out the Edgar Award every year?
Right.
Okay.
And we have all the Edgars going back to the beginning. Edgar's being named after Edgar Allan Poe, the father of the mystery.
Right. These are
story.
the best mysteries of the year. Basically, get the Edgar Award in different categories.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, do you have big name authors that come onto the site and do any kind of chats or
No,
talks?
we don't do chats now. We have a lot of the authors that have areas where there are discussions for them.
Okay.
What we really are providing people is a place to enjoy a short mystery. Our most popular times are first thing in the morning or lunch break.
Sure.
And they can also come in and discuss in our discussion area the books or what they like about mysteries with other readers.
Okay, so now we've got the authors and we've got the fans. What about kids? I grew up actually, there was a book called, or a series of books, Encyclopedia Brown.
Right.
And I grew up loving those mysteries, progressed from that on to James Bond and John D. MacDonald. So what about kids?
Well, it's interesting. Encyclopedia Brown was actually the background to the vision of this site.
Really?
That was my favorite as a child.
Okay.
And when we started it, we started with thecase.com, which we called Encyclopedia Brown for Adults.
Right, same thing. Got to read the story and solve the mystery.
Now we actually have a site for kids. It's called thecase.com/kids. And we feature a new mystery every week. And we have a story with Nina Chase and Max Decker. And they solve mysteries much like Encyclopedia did.
Great. Well, it sounds like you got something for everybody. I'm going to go check it out.
For URLs of today's featured websites, just go to the Net Cafe site at cmptv.com. When you think about great literature or studying literature, you think about some of the older works from the late 1800s, maybe the early 1900s, but there's been a lot of great writing in the past 50 years, since World War II generally, and there's a great website that covers this whole period, and that's really your baby. I guess you co-created this with another graduate student at Berkeley?
Yes, my colleague Freya Johnson and I were both studying this period, and we wanted to devote a scholarly resource to it online.
All right, let's talk about what's on the website. Number one, let's talk about that sort of, have a kind of stark homepage there. When you get on there, there's a mushroom cloud. I mean, you seem to have a kind of grim view of the past 50 years.
It's grim, but also with a sense of humor.
Okay.
I think that a lot of post-war culture after the 1950s is about destruction, partly because of the atomic bomb. We kind of live in the shadow of that bomb.
Sort of apocalyptic literature
Yeah,
that's
we wanted
out
to
there.
call attention to that, but also call attention to the fact that a lot of writers play with that and joke around with it as well. So
Yeah.
that's why you see the joking mushroom cloud.
Okay, joking mushroom cloud. Let's talk about the different genres. Again, when you go to that homepage, you can click on different areas and describe some of the different ways you've broken down the site.
We've broken it down into areas like pop culture, punk and hardcore, multiculturalism.
All right, let's talk about this one at a time. I mean, what's in the area of, say, punk and hardcore?
Well, with punk and hardcore, we wanted to emphasize how a lot of literature written after the 50s was influenced by other kinds of media, like painting or music, like punk rock. Punk rock was the beginning of the DIY, or do-it-yourself aesthetic movement. And
So
a lot
don't
of
necessarily
literature,
follow the rules that guys before you established.
Right. A lot of the idea is to say, you know, screw big corporations. We're going to do our own thing and have our own voices. And a lot of literature in the 70s and 80s was really influenced
Now
by
you
that
have a
idea.
Gen X genre also. Is that a similar feel?
It's similar, and it sort of refers to a generation of writers who came of age in the 70s and 80s.
Right. And other ones, you have feminist area, feminism, multiculturalism,
And
what
queer
else?
studies.
Uh-huh.
And these are all basically devoted to the idea that identity politics and identity are crucial to how people are writing after the 50s.
So it's really more than just literature, isn't it? I mean, you're really looking at the study of society during this period and how it interacts with literature?
Absolutely. I mean, that was our point with doing the database and calling attention to culture and how culture and society influence what people do in their writing.
We didn't actually mention the name of this site, and it's kind of complicated, so I'll ask you to say it. What do you call this site?
It's the Post-World War II Literature and Culture Database.
All right, now you also have a terrific bibliography in there. How extensive is that?
It's fairly extensive. It's secondary sources, which means it's books about books.
Right.
And you can add to it. Anybody who comes to the site and wants to can actually add their own resources to it. And we're hoping that students and scholars will keep adding onto it as the years go by.
So basically, the whole site is a database, right? I mean, you're not creating a lot of original writing right there, are you?
No, we're not. We have a few short pieces that Freya and I wrote about the genres. And then all of the rest of it is URLs and also the bibliography.
Well, but you have dissertations. You have a dissertation section, which is really cool if you're a graduate student. You get in there and read your dissertation, for example, which I went in and looked at, which has this intriguing title, sort of along the theme you were talking about. What's it? When We Pretend That We're Dead. This is what you wrote your PhD thesis on.
Yes, it's
which
on.
means what?
It's about representations of monsters and psychopaths in American pop culture, and I tie that into representations of the economy. So I'm kind of drawing a connection between scary, violent movies and the way people respond to financial conditions. So it's a kind of violence-money connection.
Money.
Yeah, monsters and money.
Interesting combination. How did you pay to get this thing going? Did you do this on your own, or the university support it?
The English department at UC Berkeley helped us get a grant called the McInerney Grant, which allowed us to spend basically the whole summer just researching and creating the database.
Yeah. Of all the stuff in there, and it's kind of unique. I mean, I couldn't find anything else on the web that gathered that kind of information together in the way you guys have done it. What are you most proud about what you two have done?
Well, the thing we were most proud about, I think, was being able to get all these genres together and describe them, and particularly finding stuff related to multiculturalism, because
you don't find a lot of that out
you
there.
don't. I mean, as a lot of people have pointed out, the web is very white,
Yeah.
and it's changing, and I think things are changing even now, but I think it's really important that scholars be aware that they need a lot more multicultural
Fascinating
sites
collection
out there.
of stuff. You guys did a great job. Thank you, Annalee.
Thanks.
For URLs of today's featured websites, just go to the Net Cafe site at cmptv.com. I guess the poster child of online literature is the zine, the electronic magazine. It features original writing done just for the web. There are lots of zines online, as you may know. One of the most respected is called Frey. Andrew is with Frey's founder.
Derek, you've created a site called Fray.com, which I have studied some literature, and I was really struck by this site. One, because it has beautiful graphics, a beautiful visual representation. Two, it's one of the few sites I see that really tries to connect with and connect people together in sort of an emotional shared experience. What was the impetus behind creating this site?
Well, the idea is basically the oldest thing that human beings have been up to. It's storytelling. I started the site about 2 years ago in 1996 when a whole lot of people were talking about full motion video and real-time news updates on the net. And I thought, I already have something that does that really well. It's called a television. It sits in my living room.
So this is almost a retro response to the technology wave.
It was.
Right.
What inspired me about the web as soon as I saw it was this idea that, okay, there's this worldwide audience of people talking to each other and connecting because they have something in common, not necessarily where they live or what they look like. So I wanted to do the oldest thing in the book, tell stories.
Right.
So I created a place where we put up one main story. They're always true. They're always in the first person.
Okay. And very well written, I might add, as well. So you're looking for good things out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I normally design them. We put them up, and the only thing that Fray does that's any different than the rest of the storytelling that's going on the web is we end each story with a question. So a story about a time when the author saw something really freaky happen on the 24 bus on their way ends with, do you ride the bus? What have you seen?
Okay.
And that's followed by a posting forum full of user-contributed stories.
Okay.
So the stories come full circle.
So everybody's had that strange experience on the bus or in the elevator or, looking for a job or something like that. And people can post those online.
We have memoirs of your favorite bed, past jobs, strange experiences, times when you've felt sad, felt happy.
Right. You've actually got it divided up into a few sections there. What are the key topics?
There are 4 sections, and they're meant to be taken loosely. There's hope, work, criminal, and drugs. And they're not necessarily what their names denote.
Right.
Criminal are stories about when the author has had a loss of hope. Hope comes from the Emily Dickinson quote, is the thing with feathers, and that can be interpreted any way you want.
Any way, yeah.
Criminal are stories about when you've given up hope and gone on from there, and drugs are stories about when you have changed your perspective from the beginning to the end.
So it doesn't necessarily mean the drug culture. It
no,
could
but
mean
there's
anything.
There's
a few of those in there.
Smoking,
right?
and there's a story about caffeine, and a few of those too.
Right. Okay. Now, a lot of the authors that are on there, as I said, are really great authors. My sense is that they're probably not known names or maybe even published names. Where do you get your stories from?
Well, they're not published in the print world, but they are published in the online world.
Okay. So they are known commodities in the online world for the most part.
Some of them, most all the authors have their own home pages, and are publishing, their words on the web already. And then they send something. They write something that seems Fray-like, and they send it to me. I've got the submission guidelines up on the site. They're very simple. It's got to be honest. It's got to be in the first person. It's got to be true, and it's got to be under 1,000 words. And that last one's the only one I'll fudge on.
Right. Well, great. Well, when I need a little dose of human reality on the web, I often go to Fray.com.
That's
so
great.
Thank you.
For URLs of today's featured websites, just go to the Net Cafe site at cmptv.com. One of the great things about digital literature is it can make available to us rare books that we could literally never get our hands on in the physical world because they're too rare. Fortunately, there is a publisher specializing in digitizing these rare books, and that's what you guys at Octavo are doing, and octavo.com is your website. Tell us, what's the basic idea behind this? What kinds of books? I mean, what is a rare book?
What we're trying to do is take the great works of humanity that are right now preserved in the vaults of libraries and museums around the world and make them affordable and accessible to everyday people.
So this is like, there's only one copy of this book around, or 2 copies, or something like that. I mean, I had one of your CD-ROMs, and we'll talk about that in a second, on Galileo Siderius Nuncius. Now, is this book exists right now somewhere, I take it?
It does exist. There's probably about 65 known copies in the world.
And that's it, yeah.
And it would probably sell for close to $500,000 if it went
If you
on
had
the
a
open
copy
market,
of it, no kidding. It's
and our edition is $25, so it's, and it has all the imagery, every single page.
All right, that's what I want to ask you about. What actually, it's on a CD-ROM right now, because I guess we don't have the bandwidth yet on the web to actually put these things out there, because you're talking graphics and lots of background text.
Yes.
So is it both? Well, first of all, how do you do this? I mean, you scan these pages in or photograph them or what?
Well, when you say scan, you think of a flatbed scanner.
Yeah, right. You're not going to do that,
No.
Pages are a little delicate.
A little delicate. And we actually have a staff conservator who works with these books the full time. It takes about a week through our initial process.
What do you do? Digital photography?
It's a digital photography.
Okay.
We've developed a special set of actual digital photography that's led into all sorts of computers. It takes about a week to do. We develop non-UV lighting and non-heat generating.
All right, now, when I look at this on my computer, is it searchable? Because that's what I like about this stuff.
Yeah, it is searchable. And what we've developed is a method of taking the text of the book and placing that invisibly behind the image of the book.
Okay, so this is a graphic, so I can really see the original page and what it looked like,
Right.
but then there's a text version that I can play with underneath that.
Exactly. It's all the beauty of the rare book plus the functionality
You got the best
of a
of both
website.
worlds in a way, yeah.
You can
and for
search
25
it.
bucks instead of a half a
for
million.
25 bucks.
Now, what goes on the website? As you say, we don't have the bandwidth yet to actually be able to do this stuff on the web, but if I go to octavo.com, is it sort of like an Amazon for book collectors?
It is, but we also go into other detail. We give background information, bibliographic information. We have lots of downloadable samples so that we can download one or two pages of it rather than the whole book.
But can I actually buy this stuff by going onto the website?
Yes, it's fast, it's easy, and it's directly from Octavo's website.
Now, if I would get a book like this in the real world, you say these are very expensive. Some of these are hidden somewhere in the world. Is there a market for these things on the web too?
There is. There's very much and I think the antiquarian booksellers have taken a hold of the web very judiciously, and they actually sell them through several websites, such as American Book Exchange and Bibliosity. You can actually do rare book searches on the internet.
So theoretically, if I wanted to buy or sell a rare book, not a $500,000 one, presumably you could do that on the net too. Do you have links to your website to that kind of stuff?
Oh, we have a few links to that.
Okay.
We don't actively support it, but
now, you're a book guy, you're a publisher guy. I mean, there's something about that tactile experience of a book which doesn't quite feel the same when you stick a CD-ROM and you read some computer screen. Are we ever going to get around that uncomfortableness of digital literature?
I think it's more of a cultural thing as new generations grow up.
That's the way they were raised.
That's the way they're raised. And you see school children now, it's more real if it's on the screen than a musty old book in a library. It just has there's just no excitement to them whatsoever.
How far are we away from actually being able to do this stuff on the web and look at some of your rare books?
We're probably about 2 or 3 years. We'll be able to stream it over the web. And the question is, the motto is, do you charge for every page? Do you charge for the book? That ancient business model
You're
question.
talking Copernicus and Galileo. I mean, how many people are really into this stuff?
There is quite a lot. We're selling very briskly on our website.
Oh, that's great.
25% of our sales are sales to Europe without any advertiser marketing.
That's fantastic.
So it's a worldwide phenomenon.
Octavo.com.
Octavo.com.
Thanks a lot. For URLs of today's featured websites, just go to the Net Cafe site at cmptv.com. So, literature online, our topic. Larry Maggott, our expert as usual, a syndicated columnist with the LA Times. Larry, what do you think? Is the next generation going to get really comfortable with reading LCD screens or CRT screens and paper books are on the way out?
We might have to for economic reasons. I mean, if paper gets expensive and LCDs get cheap, there may be an economic incentive. And
what about the whole psychological thing? I mean, a book has a kind of emotional value to it.
Our generation has problems with it. I'm not sure the kids are going to have problems. My kid's been carrying around a little Game Boy all his life. And I don't know if it's a big jump for him to start reading on screen. Better than playing games on screen. I know personally I'm a little uncomfortable with it. But again, if it can deliver an economic value, if they can get it to the point where it's affordable, if you lose it, it's not a big deal.
Now, what about the concept of publishing literature on the web? I mean, that sort of solves the publishing roadblock for a lot of writers, doesn't it?
I'm really excited about that. The idea that somebody can go in there and write and publish, and who knows, we may discover the next Hemingway or the great unknown poet. People want to express themselves, and if you look at the web, the most successful sites are the ones that allow for community. And what's the better community than writing?
Now, what about the community style of writing, the sort of digital storytelling? We're going to look back one day and think that old-fashioned linear story, you know, Charles Dickens' Moby Dick was sort of a primitive way of telling a story?
Well, every medium creates its own kind of message and its own kind of literature. And this medium, again, as you say, it brings a non-linear kind of way of writing. And we'll just have to get used to that and see what emerges. There's a lot of young people who are going to define this for us.
It's an interesting future.
Absolutely.
Larry, thanks a lot. That's it for the Net Cafe. Hope we'll see you here next time.
The Net Cafe is made possible in part by Cybersmith, wired for fun and learning, with locations in Cambridge, Massachusetts, Palo Alto, California, and White Plains, New York. By TechWeb, for up-to-the-minute technology news. And by TVA, Television Associates, bridging the worlds of computers and video with DVD authoring and MPEG encoding services.
To purchase a videotape copy of today's program, call toll-free 1-888-310-7850. Please specify the show number and the topic.